I think we'll make a start, Joel.
Let's
You're
do
right
it.
to go?
Absolutely.
Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to today's session on really centered around mental health and are you ready for the pandemic's next big term, which is really all about preparing our people and our teams to come back to the office. And I'm delighted to be joined by Joel, and we've had a little bit of an association with Joel, and I will explain a little bit later on about what he has done for our team and what we've just been through with the team. But I connected with Joel through a mutual friend, and we done a little bit of a mental health webinar a little while ago, and it was just a great success. But what I loved about this is that the mental health webinar that we went through was very real, very practical, and really gave people who attended with some great tools, insights, and ideas as to not only really what people are going through today, but then also helping people to have a bit of an understanding as to what people have been through and how to best position yourself to help people through to the other side as strong as possible. So Joel, welcome today. I know that this is a topic that you love, and I know that we could talk about this for a long, long time. But if you could just take a minute to introduce yourself, I'd love that, because what you do with Hearten Up and what you do with the Mental Health First Aid Association Australia is just tremendous work, and it really is highly impactful. And we can't thank you enough for what you do.
Oh, thanks, Daniel. Very warm introduction. I'm rapt to be here with you again. I loved our first mental health webinar a little while ago, and what I do is I guess I draw on all of the experiences I've had as a person, but also as a professional. There's an amusing photo of me sitting under a tree. I just like including it because it reminds me that sitting in nature is good. The next one. This is probably the professional boasting sort of information and background to me. This is my LinkedIn life. This is what I look like if you looked at a LinkedIn sort of version of my life. And there are some pretty cool things on there. Very fortunate to have worked with some really good people and some good organizations, done a whole bunch of stuff. But what wasn't visible, and up until 2016, what people weren't aware of, is that I've had a long sort of personal history of mental illness, mental ill health. It's something that's been in various aspects and people within my family, and it's come pretty hard for me at different points in time. And all of those impressive things that you see on the screen, and that 30-kilo chubby ginger, which the world really doesn't need, another chubby ginger, is that I collapsed. I burnt out in 2016. It all came to a head, and it was a bit of a perfect storm of my home and my personal and my professional life, all sort of getting to the point where I just needed to take some time out in order to survive, because it was at that point for me. And I'm really glad that I did. And I drew on some professional supports from a GP, psychologist, psychiatrist. I'm very open about that these days. I don't mind people knowing that I'm a human and that I'm frail, but I'm also a human being who, gives a shit about other people. And I draw on all of my professional experience and all of the things I've learned and the mental health training I've done. And I get to hang out with some pretty cool organizations and people, and just be human and share with each other the knowledge and skills that I've been able to fortunately put in my toolkit, and help people support each other with the compassion that's already there. So it's a pretty good life, and I love what I do now.
And what I love about what you do, Joel, is that you're very authentic about what you've been through, and you're very open about what you've been through. And I know that as we deep dive into this topic of preparing your team and yourself to get back to the office, people think it's just going to be a matter of open the doors and the people will run back in. There's a lot involved, and it's actually quite complex. And one of the things that I know that I'd speak to Ron about quite often, and the team about quite often, is that yes, we've been through a difficult time, but I think that what's ahead of us is going to be just as challenging, if not more challenging, when it comes to the holistic well-being of people. And it's something that we need to really play an emphasis on. And without holistic people and a holistic team and doing the right things to get them back in and engaged, your organizations are not going to be running at optimal. They're going to be running substandard. because we know that great organizations are made up of great people. And so this really today is about the focusing on the people and how to prepare them, but then also how to prepare yourself, which is so important given what we're stepping into.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think something that we can all be really conscious to remind ourselves of is just how long the tail of adapting to the change around from March last year feels like a long time ago, but it took us a long time to adjust to that. And some of us are still really adjusting to that and never quite completely settled into it. So if we think back to all of those experiences and feelings and thoughts and moments of being anxious and really uncertain, those things are going to happen again. It's just that the location and the lifestyle are almost reversing the direction they came from. But the tail of that change and the bumps along the way, they're going to be there. We talk
Absolutely.
about, or we hear about economies snapping back and businesses snapping back. But if we're all really honest, and if we all think back to what individually and collectively we've been through in the last 18 months, it's not going to be smooth. But we can certainly do a lot to make it as smooth as possible, remembering that, this is the first time in our lifetime that we've had such widespread dramatic change that we've all faced it together.
100%. I agree completely.
What I wouldn't mind doing is just talking a little bit about mental health in the workplace, if that's all right. And then we might look at some of the things that good organisations are doing. So some of the things that are really worth knowing, and I shared these in the last presentation, but I like sharing them and I think they're worth just revisiting again, is that almost half of us over the period of our lifetime are going to experience a period of mental illness. And that could be, even low-level anxiety or low-level depression or a reliance on a substance just to help us moderate how we're feeling. That's almost half of us over our lifetime. And those stats are from 2007. So they're in the field at the moment, that research being updated. And I think we could all safely assume that those statistics will quite likely be a fair bit higher given what we've all experienced. And within our industry in financial services, a third of the workforce is currently at any one time experiencing a common mental illness like anxiety or depression. That's 1 in 3 of us at any point in our industry of financial services. And for those of us with some vested interest and control and investment in how business and the economy are going, those last 2 figures there, if there is nothing else that convinces you that mental health is a workplace obligation, $13 billion every year, $60 billion hit to the economy every year from mental illness, mental ill health. So those things alone should drive home just how important it is that we do recognise and do what we can.
And Joel, just to touch on something there where you said about the data coming from 2007, I think it's important that those ABS mental health and wellbeing statistic surveys are done every 13 or 14 years. Is that right, Joel?
It's about 11 every 11 years,
like
ideally.
Yeah. And so I think the data is going to be the most recent data will be published in the coming period of time. So that is the most recently available ABS data. And
that's right.
We can expect that to be significantly worse given what we've just been through.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Daniel, you make a really good point. The reason we use that and refer to it is it's the most recently published national ABS health statistics.
Correct.
So as the new data comes out, you're right. It's quite fair to presume that there will be a fairly significant shift, I would imagine. Some of the stats, some of the statistics on mental health in the workplace wouldn't be a surprise. 91% of people say they want to work in a mentally healthy workplace. I'm not sure whether the other 9 are just extremely resilient and don't care, but 91% of us want to work in a mentally healthy workplace. And that's a very fair human thing to want. No one wants to go to a place or spend time on work that makes them feel unwell or unhealthy. Of those 91%, only 52% agree that their workplace is currently providing that environment for them. So there's work to do, but what I think we've been able to do in the last 18 months, particularly good organisations like BGL, is really recognise what can be done and what we can do for our people and bring them along and make sure that we're supporting them, make sure that we're recognising all of our individual and collective humanity, because we are humans at the end of the day, and making everybody feel comfortable and safe to be human.
And the other thing too, Joel, is that with that 52%, to all our listeners, that really is, I mean, obviously it's a high figure of people that are not prepared, but it also presents a great opportunity. And we know that there's been a lot of publication around the Great Resignation and people looking elsewhere and people really reconsidering their lives and their lifestyles. And one of the things that they really have found is that their employer does not care about them, right? Or they feel detached. And that's a really good way, paying attention to that area of the workplace, a really good way to not only drive retention, but then also encourage application for particular roles and attracting people to your business. It's a really important differentiator.
Definitely. And I think if we look back at pre-pandemic, there was, a general school of thought that it was the millennials, Gen Y and Gen Z, that were more interested in what other people are calling the touchy-feely things of connection and well-being. But one of the silver linings of the last 18 months is that, the vast majority of us either now recognise how important that is, or we have had our desire for those things validated. And you talk about the Great Resignation, one of the biggest things that will minimise or reduce the impact of that is the sorts of things that you're talking about, and training our people and supporting them so that they do feel safe and connected and included.
Absolutely.
Bit of a chance for a look at what some good organisations are doing with Emmett from the Lego Movie, helping us set the scene that everything is awesome when you're part of a team, but everything is awesome when you're part of a good team and a supportive team. Some of the things that good employers have done really well over the last year and a half is recognise that we're not just workers, we're not just employees, but we are souls, we are humans. We all have a backstory, we all have a personal life. We all have different personality types and different histories and experiences that we bring with us. And it's those things which more and more people are not asking their people to compartmentalise, but to bring them with them. And we have seen during the pandemic that the lines between home and work have not only been blurred, but completely shattered and smashed. And work is home and home is work. And that recognition of the delineation being a fluid thing and a blurry line is what some really good organisations are doing. One of the things that I love highlighting is organisations like BGL, and I'm not just saying this because you and I are hanging out together today, but it's not enough just for a company's website or HR documents or a sales brochure to say we care about our people, we care about our customers. Those things are wonderful, but I think we've all had a level of healthy cynicism increase, over the last 18 months for various reasons. And we can really see beneath that and beyond that to good organisations and companies that are living that out and really putting their stamp on that rather than just having it as a saying or something stuck up in the lunchroom or the tea room. It needs to be lived and it needs to be demonstrated. And what good organisations are doing is investing in training and investing in opportunities for their people to connect. And they're recognising that the lines are being blurred between home and work. Do you want to talk about some of the things that BGL's been doing, Daniel? Because I've kind of preemptively stolen some of your thunder and listed them on the screen. So,
look, we've done a lot, and I think the first mandate that I know that once all this started happening is just this realization of getting people across the line strong or as strong as possible. And because we all know that, especially we know this in our business, our people make us. Our people contribute to who we are. Our people have made us great. Our people have allowed us to develop great products and services that we do. And one of the things we really tried to do is to create a safe place for people to be open and really emphasize the importance of touch points, the importance of personalization. Like, we had many people here that went through difficulties, and there was so many that some are heartbreaking. I'm still dealing with some that have been really tough. But then we think of what can we do to make people's lives easier? What can we do to make people believe and know that we care for them? So we'd send things like food hampers or vouchers or sometimes biscuits or whatever it may be, just as a touch point to let them know that, hey, someone's got your back. Someone cares for you. The other thing that we've really done is created programs and things to be able to bring people together and connect. Now, Joel, I'm not a yoga person. I'm not a Bollywood dancer, but mate, I've done every single one of these, not because I'm good at them, but it's because it was my chance to connect with people. So what we did is we ran things like cooking classes, exercise challenges. We did family life. So we did pet stories. We've done so many things which seemed insignificant at the time, but on varying levels throughout the business, it just got people connected. It made them feel that they were something bigger than the home that they were confined to, because we've got a lot of people that are single, that are living at home, that didn't have friends or families around them, and all they had was that touch point with us or a touch point with a peer. One of the things that I started embarking on last year too was, and I didn't get through them all, unfortunately, was just spontaneous phone calls, right? You might think it's crazy, but people hadn't heard people's voices or over the phone for such a long time, because everything was done via Zoom or done via Slack or particular channels, but touch points. We've been really strong in our communications. We've been really understanding of people that had to work from home and had children or had sick parents or people that got COVID. We had some really tragic stories, but understanding and empathy is so important, and humanizing the touch is so important. We did little things like giving people $50 to go out and spend in a local community, that one of the initiatives that Ron had, so that they just support up a small business, and we didn't mind where they spent it. We just wanted to invest back into the local community. The other really good thing that we did too is, in all our conversations, that I've been doing this quite a lot, is starting to prepare the people for what's coming back. And there's a term that I love. It's called dystrophy. And effectively, it's the deterioration of a muscle or a particular part of your body or whatever that fades away because it hasn't been exercised enough. And it actually came from a local pastor. I heard this in a sermon, and I thought, wow, my pastor was really onto something. It was about, if you don't exercise particular muscles and certain things, then they fade away. And honestly, people have forgotten what it means to be social, to come in touch with humans again, to go out and do the normal things in life. So what we wanted to do is, now going forward, is we're encouraging people to, get their team together, go for a longer brunch, go for a walk, just do things to bring people together. And the other thing that we're doing too is now creating a little video series, Joel, where we're going to have people dressing up, getting ready to go to work, even though they're still at home. But I know that, like, for myself, I've been asked to get up and, put some makeup on, do my hair as if I'm going to work, but then go sit at my desk at home, but start preparing as if I'm going back to work, to start getting people used to the concept of going back. But I suppose one of the proudest things that we've done here, and you can see my background, I'll sort of sit out of it a little bit. What we did is that we put all our managers and leaders through Joel's Hearten Up mental health program. So what we have now is we have a team of 25 people. I'd done it before, but we have a group of 25 people across the business who are trained up in mental health first aid. And one of the most liberating things about this is that you're not equipped to diagnose problems. You're not equipped to solve problems. All you do is it gives people the courage to have the conversation, to get people to seek the self-help and to do something about what they're going through, because we know that early intervention and getting in things early can be the difference between, and we'll call it for what it is, life and death. Mm-hmm. Because people do go to that extreme, and we know that. So we now have somewhere around about one person for every 7 people within the business trained in the area of mental health first aid. And I absolutely love it. It's one of the a great achievement that we've been able to do. And it's also backed by the belief and the investment from our CEO, Ron, who was so for this, because we just realized what we're going to be dealing with is a lot more than just bringing people back together. The economy may bounce back, but we want people to bounce back at the same time. So what we've done is tried to position ourselves to ensure that we can get both going. And it's going to be a hard slog, but we know that we can do it.
That's a pretty impressive collection of warm, friendly faces that you've got behind you.
Yeah, not bad. I'm there too somewhere.
You are. There's 2 Daniels. Today's a real treat. It's been really a real pleasure for me to get to spend time with your team, with your managers and leaders. And I'm not just saying this, I don't say anything that isn't true, but having two full groups of people who genuinely care about each other and who are really constructive and really compassionate when it comes to building up their confidence and their skills in how to be really supportive and present human beings for each other as human beings, irrespective of the workplace dynamics. That's a really cool thing. And it's not stretching the truth for me to say that at the end of the day of each of those training sessions that we had with your team, I was on a bit of a high because it was something that I hadn't been able to do a lot of over the last year and a half. And that's be in the company of a large group of people who all give a shit about each other and just feed off that positive support. It was really, really cool for me to be able to do that.
And you know what, Joel, and I think this is a really important message too for all our listeners, is that that's an important part of why people engage with us. Yeah, we've got great products and services. We know that, but we're more than just a product and service. I want people to know us as an organization that cares about the community, the clients, and the very people that deliver these products and services to you. And we invest heavily in that. And that's what we're so proud of, is our people. And we invest in them, and we continue to do so continually. And it's not just a one-off thing. Mental health, the conversation of mental health, well-being, culture is very deliberate, intentional, and it happens each and every single day. And it's something that we will work so hard to sustain because it's so important to who we are.
Yeah, that's a really admirable thing. And it's nice to be able to hang out with organisations like BGL who live that and don't just say it.
Thank you.
What we might do, if you're happy, Daniel, is have a look at some of the previous big societal changes over the last 100 years and what we might be able to learn from those who've come before us.
Yeah, and I think this is really important because I know that in looking at stuff like this, yeah, we've been through a journey, but we can also get through to the other side of it. And there's so much that we can learn about what we've been through, not only about ourselves, but also about the people that we work with to actually bring us closer together, not further apart, which bucks the trend in many ways, but divisiveness and that some of the things that are going on at the moment don't help, and really important to know that we will get through this and get through it well, but a lot of it depends on us.
Absolutely. And we can get through it, and we will get through it.
Absolutely.
And a large part of the reason we will is because we might forget this at times, but as a society and a community, even beyond our years, we've done this before. We've faced major changes in our lifestyle, major disruptions to the way we live and the way that the workplace and the home life are separated or brought closer together. We've done this before. And if we look back at some of the bigger things that have happened, particularly during the 20th century, after, the Great War, the First World War, what we can see in looking back and looking at the history books is that there wasn't that cohesion and that sense of unity in adapting to a post-war environment and a post-war society. There was that, I guess perhaps it's easy for me to say, but maybe a naive presumption that we're able now to go back to the way things were because the war is done or the war is won. But what we can see post-World War II is that there was, a long period of high unemployment. There was stagnation. There was, a period in the 20s where the Roaring 20s were up and alive, but that all soon collapsed into the Great Depression. And it really created the fertile environment for what ended up culminating in World War II. So World War II, really, if we look at it in the context of World War I, not adjusting post-World War I, created the opportunity for World War II to happen, both in Europe and in Asia and within the broader society. What we can see, what happened after World War II, however, is that things were really quite different. There was a general, more committed spirit and intent to acknowledge that some of the changes that had taken place in daily life during World War II were going to remain that way in some fashion.
Yeah.
Some of them are really quite positive. We had more females entering the workforce in World War II, and I know that's a big kettle of fish that we're yet to get right as a society. But we took some steps from that by acknowledging that that was a positive thing to occur, and we've evolved and adapted from that. Some of the other things that we can look at, immediately post World War II, there was the Spanish flu pandemic, which killed 60 million people, 10 million people more than World War II itself. And there are videos and footage and photos of people wearing those bizarre masks and containing themselves to home. But what we didn't have was the medical technology and those sorts of things that have been so crucial to us this time around. What we can learn from those things, though, is that people don't just bounce back because the stage is set for them. That it's great for the stage to be set and everybody's champing at the idea of being able to go out more. But there's still some hesitation. We see it, surveys even on newspaper websites in the last few days, that 20 to 30% of people are still going to be a bit hesitant, reluctant to re-enter public life or society life. And they plan to take their time to gradually re-enter social interaction, which is fair, given what we've all encountered. People are an important part of any society, and people spend the majority of their time on work, whether that's at work or on work. And so workplaces do have that critical role, as you acknowledge at BGL, and invest so heavily in creating that culture and that opportunity for people to stay connected and involved with each other. One of the things I really like about post-World War II Australia is that just a few years later, in 1949, it was announced that our bid for the Melbourne 1956 Olympic Games was successful. And that was just a few years after World War II ended. And what it did was generate some really strong positivity about who we are and what we'd learned and what we'd been through. And governments and businesses came together to really set the scene, get the facilities ready, and push that big hairy goal of having live television ready for it.
Yeah.
So there are those opportunities for us coming out of this if we're open to it, but collectively committing to it and not just working in isolation.
Joel, I've got a great question here from Melinda Ninas, and don't be afraid, people, to send your questions through, but it says, how do you manage staff who don't want to engage in these mental health initiatives, particularly when I personally feel they would really benefit from it, but understand that in a group trivia session, big personalities can tend to take over? Thanks, Melinda. I'd like to just add my little spiel to this, Melinda, and it is a great question because, yes, organizations are made up of big personalities, right? And they do have a tendency to take over. But what we did is we spread our events so wide that people had the chance to get involved, not only in the bigger events, but also the smaller events, which were maybe a little bit more intimate, that we knew that they'd come alive in. Like, I'm going to give you a great example, right? One of them was someone had a passion to make cocktails, right? And this person, generally, would get involved and be quite active. But when you put them in front of the kitchen and she had her drinks bar open and she was shaking the cocktail, she came to life, right? And then that little group that was there, which generally some of them weren't in some of the other groups, they all came to life. So it's about really taking the time to understand the people and creating things for them to be able to get involved with. But then also, if you're seeing things like abnormal behavior or withdrawal, then maybe that's also a cue to reach out, but definitely create things. And even if it's something about that person that that they're really passionate about and they absolutely love, create something around that, could give them the chance to at least put their hand up and get involved. Because it can make this, so that whole thing of inclusion and looking wide, I believe makes a big difference, because everyone is passionate about something. And trying to find that mix is not easy, but once you find it, you'll find that people come alive in certain groups.
Definitely. It's a great question. As someone who moderates and facilitates different things from time to time, what I've found that can work really well, Melinda, is having a facilitator with almost like a Family Feud no button, like a wah wah sort of a button sound effect type thing. And I call those things out right at the top and say, listen, everyone's got 15 seconds to respond to this question. If you go over, I'm going to mute you whether you like it or not, so that you don't go over, and so that everybody's got that opportunity for stage time. And I'm pretty, maybe it's because I'm a, I don't know, a redhead or whatever, but I'm really comfortable in just encouraging people to listen more than they talk. And if people are talking too much, which I realise is ironic as I'm talking on a live webinar, but if people are talking too much, just calling them out and saying, mate, use your ears for a bit. Really appreciate what you've said, but it's your time to let your ears shine. And just by being slightly playful but direct, I find can work pretty well.
Yep. Agree.
Might look at some suggestions on what other good organisations can do if they want. Daniel, what do you think?
I think that's a great idea, and I know there's some beauties here because I know that you already encouraged me to do one when I just looked at it. So I think it's a great idea.
So I'll have a look at some suggestions. And I'm going to show you a checklist of 5 things that you can do now in order to help your people and help your organisations as we come through this other side to the next phase. And you'll see that they're grouped slightly interestingly. The first 2 relate to things that you can invest some money into if you want to. If that is an avenue that you'd like to go down and say, I want to really put some money into this, do what Daniel's doing, do what other organisations are doing, and give your staff an opportunity to head out safely in their local area and spend some time celebrating the lifting restrictions and take photos of that, share them internally and externally. If you want a really good example of how to use social media channels and professional networking channels in order to showcase humanity, again, not blowing smoke, have a look at BGL's LinkedIn and Facebook and see all the things to do with their pets and their people and their photos of that cocktail making session. You see people really come alive. Another thing that you can invest money into if you want to, and it doesn't have to be with me, it can be with any organisation that does accredited training, is invest in that accredited training. Make it a formal component of people's continuing professional development, goes towards their CPD each year, but gives people the skills and the confidence and to be able to engage and connect with each other. The other 3 things, 3, 4, and 5 on that list, these are all behavioural, and these are easy to achieve because they require no money, but they do require stepping slightly out of our comfort zones at times. But these are things I try and do whenever I'm meeting with external organisations or even catching up with my family, who now roll their eyes amusingly whenever I throw a left field question at them designed to engage and have a chat. Ask people how they're feeling and give them the space. Let them step into that and be comfortable with pauses and silence after you ask a question to give people room to step in and share how they're feeling. Leaders and managers can really role model that whenever we open a meeting or we get to a gathering, whether it's online or whether it's in person, as we open up and spend more time together. Share whenever you're feeling a bit flat. Share whenever you're feeling amazing, and talk about non-work stuff as well as work. So if you've had the unfortunate and really challenging circumstance of an ill pet, or having last-minute plans to go and visit your mother on a weekend and then suddenly thrust into another 7-day lockdown, mention that. Show people that you feel stuff too, and that it's okay for them to talk about when they feel these things. Yeah, another thing that's...
Yeah, I was going to say that the importance of normalizing things and just being vocal is so important. Because I know that even in doing so myself, it opens up conversation and encourages others to feel that level of safety, to be able to be open and to be able to express how they feel. And I know, like the other week, I went through a really difficult time through some circumstances, and just being able to rally up a few people around me that I know that I could speak to and feel safe speaking to made such a difference to me. But then it also allowed them to speak to me, so it almost became like a two-way conversation where we realized, hey, we've been through a bit of a rough patch, it's been a bit hard, but this is what I experienced, this is how I was feeling. How can I help you? What can I do to cheer you up? And then, the next morning, you're driving back home from work and you get that phone call, just checking in on you after the conversation, right? Amazing.
Yeah.
Right? And just to know that there's someone by your side or someone walking with you that's saying, hey, I'm all right, but I want you to be all right too. And I want to take you by the hand and get you across that line, is just unbelievably encouraging. Unbelievably encouraging.
knowing that we're not alone is such a powerful thing, and it takes no money and only a small amount of effort, and it's so powerful.
Yeah, look, and the other thing I probably think I'd like to add to this too, Joel, and I know that we talk about this a little bit. I mean, I've read about this a bit, and that's about putting your own mask on too and making sure that you're okay. And that, it's, yes, you've got an obligation to your people, your family, your friends, but you've also got an obligation to yourself to be okay too. And you've got an obligation too. And I think it's a really important thing that we can all do, is just do our own self-check to make sure that we're okay.
Yeah.
Because so many times that, selflessly, because most of us, and a lot of us have that selfless nature within us. We give, but we're not actually taking the time to be restored and to be refreshed and to be brought back to base. And that's really important too, if you're going to be able to open up and help people out.
Absolutely. I've got a good friend of mine who, his small family unit of 4, he's the rock, I guess, that everybody else sort of gravitates around. He's the strong one. And because of the nature of the family dynamics and what's that family is dealing with and has for a while, he doesn't have anyone to look in on him. So what we've done over the past 6 months or so is caught up every 1 or 2 weeks, 2 weeks at the longest, for a half-hour virtual coffee on Zoom. And it's almost like just a cathartic purge. And he just tells me, swears, does whatever he wants. And I just, sit with him and listen to him, and he gets it off his chest. And I don't need to give him any answers or fix anything for him, but it's just being present.
Yep, agree.
So it's a really, yeah, you're right. I'm glad you have people that you can do that with. It's really important.
Yep. Well, I suppose I've got a question for you, Joel, and I think this will be an important one that many people here will want a bit of direction on. Is there's going to be resistance to people coming back to the office, right? We know that. I'm a big advocate for having a reasonable balance. So one of the things that we'd like to see from our people going forward is 3 days in the office, 2 days a week from home on their choice. And, when I think about it, if at the start of my career, I was told I can work from home Thursday, Friday, be at home Saturday, Sunday, and then work in the office Monday to Wednesday, would have been like the dream career, right? But people are going to struggle to get people back. And there's a number of reasons for that, whether because they see it now as an inconvenience. They don't feel safe. They're afraid of the virus. One of the things I'm a big advocate for here is the importance of people coming together, teams coming together and working together and problem solving together and learning together, because that's where a lot of people's development does take place. Because I think that's one big thing that's been missing over the last 12 months is that incidental learning through problem solving and just those conversations is just gone. And people very much are doing today what they've been doing for the last 18 months because they haven't had a chance to develop themselves. How do we encourage people to come back, Joel? And what are some of the things that people should be doing to encourage their people to come back?
Great question. I wish I had a very simple answer, but I have a very simple response to that, and that is to just be empathetic and patient as much as we can. One of the real upsides for many people, not for everyone, but one of the real upsides of working from home and being in lockdown or isolation along the way is that people have been able to spend more time with those that they live with, and where that's positive and where that's had a great impact, particularly those with young children. Yes. I know friends who've had babies born during the pandemic, and those, those fathers are now sort of getting to the point where they're not dreading, but they're really cautious about what it means for them in terms of time with their new baby as they spend more time in the office. And one of them has been really open with their employer, and their employer's been really great and understanding, and just said to them and shared with them their own experience of returning to work after having had a child. These things take time, and people gradually adjust, but we don't suddenly adjust. I like the balance that you're talking about trying to achieve. I think that's a really good way to mix it up. And people that have come before you and I, our parents, imagine them being told they could work from home 2 days a week. It would have been party central in terms of how great is this. Now our expectations have shifted, and now it's like, that's great, I appreciate that, but it's no longer a cause for celebration. It's just well, that's kind of the way it should be.
And look, and I think that by not encouraging people to come back, it's going to have a significant impact on culture, because you can't build culture on Zoom. And Zoom is not easy, and it was nice at the start, but it's not easy. But one of the things that we've also done here is we've done our best to mitigate fear, right? And we've been very deliberate about telling people to be balanced in what they watch, or turning off from mainstream media, and get educated and informed responses to things. So one of the things that we did, which, look, in our office, we did a survey around vaccination status and where people were at, completely anonymous. And we had about 83% that had been one or double. And then the second one, like insofar as thinking about it, was sitting at about 16%. So we're probably sitting at about 17% that weren't sure what to do. We did a number of things to help people. And one of the things that we did is that we actually got a doctor. We paid a doctor to join us for a Zoom session. And people gave us a whole heap of questions, or we got one person gave us a whole heap of questions, but then I asked a lot of questions to bring some balance to what's being said, to mitigate the fear that surrounds a lot of what's going on. And I'm pleased to say that when it comes to our organisation now, we're sitting at about 99%, right? 99% of people that have either double or have gone for, who have had their first. But at the same time, we are very respectful and understanding of those that don't want to. And that is super, super important. And let them the time to make their own decision, and to basically walk down the path that they want to walk, without in any way, shape or form identifying them or singling them out in any way. It's the last thing you want to do.
Absolutely. We talked just 20 minutes or so ago about the sudden change and then our gradual adjustment to those changes, and thoughts taking a long time to follow up after that, and the introduction of a vaccine and public health mandates that are beyond our control. It takes time for people to absorb and process. Right. I love the fact that you brought a doctor in to talk about it and put all the questions and have an open forum. That's really great.
Yeah, it was actually an idea that my wife and someone else had, who my wife works with us too, that she'd heard in a webinar. And as we got them in, and there was so many questions asked, but also the nature of the questions was especially one of them was very reflective of the fear based on misinformation. So I encourage you as principals, partners, team leaders, have good, strong communication, but make it factual. Make it to the point, and base it on reality. Don't base it on what we see on Twitter or what we see here and there, because, mate, there is so much misinformation there from unqualified people that I believe has just put people into a frenzy across all sectors of the economy.
One of the downsides of the advent of social media is that it's great that everybody's got a microphone and the opportunity to share their voice, but it's also terrible that everybody's got a microphone and is able to share their voice, because you're right, we need that impartial objectivity and fact checking and respectful discussion along the way, rather than slanging matches.
Yep, agree.
What I guess probably is the main things that I've really enjoyed about working with you and your team, Daniel, and the sorts of things that really give me a real buzz, is being able just to share knowledge and get together as people, talk about the sorts of things that we've all got going on, what's worrying us, and then introducing some evidence-based, evidence-backed and robustly prepared and accredited training around that as well, to help people build out not only their skills and tools and resources, their toolkit, for want of a better term, as much as it is a cliche, but that confidence as well, and that real encouragement of allowing people to step up and step forward, and to do that from a place of not necessarily being completely sure. But there is, as much as I might sound like a poor knockoff of Brené Brown, there is so much incredible power in vulnerability. And the biggest thing that can come from showing yourself, even when you're really uncomfortable or feeling slightly uncertain, is that it gives other people the permission to do the same thing. And that's when we get the best out of each other, when we all step forward.
Agree.
There's a good question on the Q&A about the presentation slides after the webinar. Yes, yeah, BGL are going to send these out to you afterwards, so you can draw on those figuratively and literally as much as you might like to. I've probably been through the main things that I thought might be really useful for us today, Daniel, but I'm enjoying having a chat, and I'm happy to just keep nattering away if you like, or we can.
Look, I think the idea was try and wrap it up within the next 5 minutes or so. While you jump onto your next slide, I'd love it if people have any questions. And yes, Deb, I agree with you. We all have a right to our opinion, but it doesn't necessarily make it, your opinion right. And one of the things I think that we've forgotten is the art of being able to have good, robust discussion and still be united and not divided, and be on the same page, even though we may share differing views. So important. I agree completely with you.
Well said, Deb. If everybody's happy and comfortable, I might just quickly race through some of the things that Hearten Up does, just in case anybody's interested. We'll show them up on the screen, but mental health first aid training is the core thing that we do. We've recently trained all of BGL's management team, which has been really awesome and a really cool thing to do. Discovered, Daniel, that half of your management team have a really strong interest in oats and consuming oats as a healthy breakfast. That became a bit of a running joke.
So now I know what to get them for Christmas, mate.
Absolutely. I think there's a branding opportunity.
The cheapest Christmas I've ever had.
BGL oats, I reckon there's an opportunity there. You can also put it out for the reindeers too, to encourage Santa to come along. One of the other things that we do and that I really love doing is discussions like this, and just joining in team meetings and having a chat. And I've got a pretty, I don't know, it's an interesting backstory, I guess, without being arrogant about my own life, but it's been some things that have occurred in my own life which have been really, really challenging, and that I've learned a lot from, and that I've not always responded to very well. But what I love being able to do is just really let it all hang out, not in a literal sense, but just to share all of the things that I've found really hard, and all of the things that I've learned along the way. And I'm a country boy at heart. I'm from a place called Wangaratta in northeast Victoria, and I'm a pretty light-hearted sort of person. So I love joining in those sorts of gatherings with people, and encouraging everyone to be human and to be open and just relax and enjoy the beauty and the opportunity that comes from when we're all together. And the point you made before, I just had a thought a couple of moments ago around how we can, the missing opportunities to develop by not being together in person. I reckon the biggest learning period in my professional career, when I used to wear a suit every day, as opposed to now, is watching my managers and my leaders and how they interacted with each other, how they constructively challenged each other and got the best out of each other. And I know that that's something I've missed in the last year and a half by not being able to spend time physically in workplaces. So I think it's a really good point you made, and it's one of the real strong positives that we've got ahead of us as we do return to the office.
Yep, agree.
Anyway, that's enough for me. I just wanted to say thanks to you and to BGL for allowing me to hang out with you again today. It's always fun.
It's always a pleasure. And I don't say this lightly, but, if you are interested in having Joel be involved in team-based things or some training education of your people, even just someone to bounce stuff off, he's always available and very balanced, very supportive. And I always find that the information he brings to the party just of such great value. So look, I just want to say thank you, Joel, because I know that this was a significant amount of your time in preparing this and also doing this. So thank you on behalf of all of us. And, on behalf of BGL, all I can say to the community and those listening to us is thank you, because so many people in this forum and in our community have really encouraged us and helped us get across the line and helped us get across the line strong. And, as we look forward to opening up, we really want to encourage people to get back together and to live life and to love life. And you know what, we are made to love life. And one of the things that I know that I haven't held back from is expressing to people how I feel about them. And this might sound a bit weird, right, Joel? You might laugh at this, right? But I got a guy, a friend of mine is going through a difficult time and he's a colleague. And I said, you know what, mate, I want you to know that you are a good person and that I genuinely love you. Right. And no matter what, my hand's there for you. Right. And it's uplifting to the soul. Genuine though. You don't just say it because it makes you feel good. You say it because you genuinely mean it. And people see genuineness and people love genuineness. You don't always get it right. I get that. But when the motive is pure, the outcome is good. You can use that one day, mate.
Thanks, Daniel. I just to give you a bit of warning or a heads up, I think that next time we get together in person, which will actually be the first time we'll be able to get together in person since our paths crossed, I may socially, physically, responsibly reach out for a bit of a man hug if you're comfortable.
Nah, mate. Fist pump only, champ.
Deal.
I love hugs. Don't worry. I'll squeeze the air out of your lungs.
That's a lot of squeezing.
But look, thank you, everyone. We will make these slides available. We're happy to hang out for the next few minutes if people would like to ask some questions. So we're happy to hang out for the next 5 minutes, but you will get the slides from us. Thank you for being a part of this, and just thank you for being an amazing part and an extension of who we are as a business and a community. And we appreciate you. So thank you. Thank you, Joel.
Thanks for hanging out, everyone.